Welcome to the Providence College Podcast. Subscribe to the show on iTunes, SoundCloud, Stitcher, and Google Play. If you like what you hear, please review and share with others. Email podcast@providence.edu with questions or comments. Go Friars!
Hello and welcome to the Providence College Podcast. I'm your host, Matt Chittum, and I'm joined as always by PC producer and videographer Chris Judge, class of '05. Here at the Providence College Podcast, it's our job to bring you interesting stories from inside the Friar family. And today we are joined by two individuals. First, Margot Royer-Johnson, the head coach of the women's volleyball team, and sophomore Jenae Alderson, a sports media major in Brooklyn Park, Minnesota native. Thank you both for coming on to the podcast.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Well, I'll tell you, you guys are in the middle of a fantastic season, so thank you for taking the time out. I know especially during the season, it can be a little busy, so we certainly appreciate you coming on.
We're happy to be here.
Yeah, and thank you for introducing us to everybody.
Hey, I'm excited to talk to you. I know obviously this is a successful season so far. We don't want to get put the cart before the horse necessarily, and we're 2 games into Big East play, and there's plenty of season to go. But so far, 13-4, started off the year with a lengthy win streak. So we want to get into all of that, and I can't wait to talk to you about it. But first, coming into the year, Coach, what's the goal setting look like for you as you start preseason with your athletes, and you want to set up certain goals or metrics that you either want the team and or individuals to hit?
On the team level, we really were hoping that this would be a year where we could really get to the nuts and bolts of what volleyball is all about. Fundamentally, we graduated 5 seniors, and we only have 1 current senior now. So we knew we were a young team, and our goal was really to, with the new staff in particular, to get down to real fundamentals of volleyball with all of the girls. Not, again, like you said, put the cart before the horse, skill development-wise. That was the goal starting at preseason, to really start at the beginning with, look, ball control is going to be our way we can win these games. Ball control is going to be the way we're going to define success. So we started really from day one, really working on ball control, and that's something that my staff, my new staff, and I sat down with and decided that's going to be something that we feel needs to be a fundamental of this program.
Right. So when you're designing practice plans, either 1 day out or 2 to 3 weeks out with the new coaching staff, how's that work for you in terms of letting them know what you expect out of certain components of practice versus taking input from them as they're new to the team?
That's a good question. Actually, I've been here a long time and haven't really had much help in any facet of running the program. This year in particular, now I have a new full-time assistant and a full-time graduate assistant. So the way I've designed things is actually a lot different than I have in the past. I've actually put my full-time assistant in charge of doing the practice planning. Certainly we talk about the concepts that we want to go over and the fundamentals of what we want to do. But my assistant, Keith Smith, has been doing a lot of the practice planning. And again, with those same fundamentals that we talked about. But how do I do it? It's, for the most part, we've designed more or less through the year what we want to do as a guideline, but he goes day by day based on the things that we see we need the most work with in the practice planning.
Right. So, Jenae, did practices when you started this preseason feel any different than your first year?
Definitely. Well, first of all, they time practice, which is something I'm not used to because I totally went into volleyball for the main fact that it's not timed because I get anxiety for timed sports. But I started to like it because last year was kind of like my first year here with, it was just, there was no time. It was definitely different structure. So every drill, you kind of just like, oh, like, when is the drill going to end? Like, do it. It's not that I'm not putting 100% every single time. It's like, oh, if I kind of like, just, I don't know when it's going to end. So I got to like conserve my energy for the next drill. But like this one, it's 15 minutes for a certain drill. I'm going to put my all for this 15 minutes and you want to like finish the drill. You want to do everything you can, almost like beat the clock. So definitely changed my mindset of how I do things. And also I like the structure of the practice. So I see on the board, like, this is what we're going to do today. I'm determined to get better at this drill. I'm determined when this drill happens to focus on that. So it's very pinpointing how I focus on what I have to do. And I know the next drill I can focus on that instead of just trying to focus on everything in one. If that makes sense. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. So when you see him on the board, do you ever feel like you're looking ahead to the next drill, or say there's a drill that you really like, or conversely, there's a drill you look down and you're like, hey, I really am not looking forward to doing X, Y, Z. That's going to be in the second half of practice. Is that going to be, that's something you potentially look at?
Definitely you could have that mindset, but I feel like our team, it's like the first drill, I kind of don't like that, but I know if I do my hardest and just, because if you do your best at the drill, I feel like we get it done faster. He'll stop the time earlier. So I'm like, if I just work my hardest at this drill, get better 100% somehow, because I know the things that I don't like to do, obviously, is things that we aren't the best at. So I know if I get better at this, the drill coming up, I'm going to love it. Or if I love the drill we're in, I just like kind of capture that moment and then work on the rest later. Like, this is where I'm going to have my fun. Then I'm just going to get down to my fundamentals and work hard in the next drill. Maybe I might not like it, but I know it's what I have to do. And I know it's only for a set amount of time, so I better get better somehow in that 15 minutes.
Right. And when you're talking about ball control, Coach, how much of that is skill development versus how much of that is team chemistry?
I'd say it's actually a three-pronged answer. It's most certainly skill development, and it's definitely team chemistry. Volleyball is all about team chemistry, but it's more about a mindset, honestly. It's more about focusing on the details, and that's usually the biggest challenge when it comes to fundamentals of volleyball. It's about the specific details of what you're doing, and so I'd say the details are things that all of our players already know how to do, but a lot of times, we rush through that because, we know how to do it, instead of really setting your mind to one task at a time, one transition the best you can, one approach the best you can, one swing the best you can, one coverage the best you can. So it's more of a mindset than it is almost physical.
So you really have to stay in the moment each point, or even breaking that down further just into each exchange?
Yeah, we've really tried to do that this year in particular. Like I said, volleyball is a game that, at this level, all the girls come in with pretty good fundamentals of the game. But when it comes down to the highest level of the game, it's the team that's going to win is the team that is able to break down each individual skill the best and at the same time put it all together at once. So we stress all the time. When the play ends, that's when you can rest. But within that play, if the ball doesn't come to you, if the ball's on the complete other side of the court, if it seems like you're going to have no part of this play, you're wrong, because it's that person who lets their mind go for just that one split second's the reason why we're going to lose that point.
So besides mindset, what skill do you feel like you have to teach or work on the most for kids coming out of high school?
Well, in particular with this team, we've really worked specifically on trying to speed up our offense this year. So I think the biggest skill is learning how to work together at a faster speed than anybody's used to. We're a smaller club than a lot of the clubs that we're playing. So when I say smaller, I mean average height, average reach. We're a little bit lower. And so therefore we've decided our way to success is to speed up the game. So the biggest thing that we have to work on is how do you speed up the game and limit errors? Because obviously when you speed up the game, that can increase errors. So that's really, the goal right now.
So Jenae, when you have that idea in mind, all right, we want to play fast, we want to be maybe quicker, more athletic than some of our opponents, at least side to side. How do you prepare for the season, I guess, before preseason, right? So you're kind of getting ready so that when you enter preseason, you're just ready to go and not necessarily like starting to get in shape.
Personally, first, for shape-wise, I think it's just following the plan of Coach White. Shout out to Coach White also, because he just puts us in the right position if you follow what he says to be successful physically. Mentally, you just have to trust the coaches because everything you start new, you're going to fail tremendously. And in the beginning, preseason, fast offense, we were not doing the best, but it's all about trusting the coaches and knowing that if you practice it enough, if you do it to the best of your ability every time, it'll work. Because I think that was just one of the best things that we could have done is just knowing that if we just keep at it, it'll probably be successful, and it's starting to work now. And I think the biggest thing was just trusting that we knew we could do it and that the coaches knew it was going to be successful.
And beyond trusting your coaches, you're competitive people, right? So you're failing at something, you're trying to do something that's maybe a little bit like not a stretch goal, but a skill that you're trying to improve. So you're testing your limits. As a competitor, that must be hard though, because it's not like you're succeeding every time. How do you deal with the daily struggle of trying to make sure that you're staying on top of your skill development, but at the same time keeping a mindset where you're not too negative on yourself as you're trying to learn new things or improve things that you might not be great at?
I guess the competitive aspect could probably just be changed a bit because I want to perfect this skill. So when as I'm feeling, I know once I succeed in this skill, I will probably be more accomplished or feel more accomplished than anything else. And also, I know in the past we haven't been successful for what we've been doing. So if I do this and I get good, like if we all get good at it, I know the competition aspect will just go into it because we'll start winning. So it's just like the mindset of, yeah, I'm struggling now, but I know it's going to be well worth it in the future.
In terms of improving, not just team-wise, but individually, how does it differ from your time in high school and say your club team versus how you approach it in college?
Club, I don't know. We ran a fast offense in club, so I was kind of a little bit ahead of the game a little bit. But it's still faster because in college, because you're obviously going against girls that are 6'8", 6'5". So it's different because it's fast, but you have to learn also where they are, and your eyes have to be faster. So I guess it's just, it's overtime. You have to just kind of feel it out, I feel like. It's not that different. It's still volleyball. You just have to hit.
And actually, Jenae is a pretty gifted athlete. So the speed part of the game came a little bit easier to her, I think, than others. And I think, her club, one of the reasons why I did recruit her in the first place is because her club does run a faster offense. And that's the kind of offense we wanted to run. I think what she was getting at, too, was a lot of the teams that they would play would have a slower offense, whereas here, offensively, we need to be fast, but defensively, we need to be really fast as well. So that can be an adjustment. But luckily for us, Jenae is a pretty gifted athlete. So those that muscle memory, that kind of those kind of habits come a little bit quicker to her.
And when you're talking about roster construction and bringing people into the program, do you have a certain way you want to play and you recruit to fit that style, or is it kind of the reverse, that you try to recruit people that you view as potentially great fits for the school and for you as a coach, and they're obviously very athletic and gifted and talented and competitive, and you kind of figure out the style later?
It's not really one or the other. It's a combination of all. There's so much that goes into recruiting a student athlete. Certainly, we want somebody who's athletic that can fit into that offense. At the same time, we want somebody who socially is a fit and is going to be a good part of that team chemistry we talked about earlier. And that's not always an easy fit. There's also a size factor, especially to our conference. You need to be able to reach a certain height or have a certain size in order to be successful. So beyond all of that, particularly at Providence, they have to be a really bright student to get in here and to succeed here. And we want people who are going to succeed as people when they graduate. And certainly, certainly athletically, that's my job. But when they leave here, did they succeed as an athlete, as an academic person, as a leader, those kind of things.
Right. And how does player leadership play a role in the preseason as you're starting the year, especially when you have a lot of roster turnover? You mentioned earlier 5 seniors left the team. So what is the role of kind of the inter-team leadership as you progress into the season?
Definitely. Well, first, we're blessed and not blessed to have so many big personalities on our team. I think, but it brings so many different aspects because you have the people that are really outgoing, but then you have people like our senior Cece who's very calm, and they just bring the calmness to the court. And you have the outgoing ones that, like, when we're ready to go, they're ready to move fast, they're ready to bring the explosion that we need. So I feel like everybody has their different duty, and everyone has a different leadership, and when that time comes, they step up to do it. So it's kind of nice because everyone feels like there has to be a leader, there has to be a captain, but I feel like everyone has their own leadership and different skills or different characteristics. So it's just whatever.
It's music to my ears because that's one of the things we talk about all the time is that, everybody's a leader in with the talents that they have, either physically, off the court, academically, whatever it is. And I think if everybody on the court is a leader in their own way, we can be more successful and everybody feels a lot more part of it.
And how much does seniority play a factor in all of that?
Well, we only have one senior. So, I mean, it plays a big factor in the fact that she's a mom, I feel like, of the team. She takes care of all of us, like, especially when we do the little things, like going on trips, we have to get the camera and the cable cords, and a lot of us sometimes forget. And she's the one that, like, oh, did you do this? Did you do this? Or if the little things that we don't even think about, like cleaning up the locker room, she's, like, behind us, like, nagging at us because she wants us to be better. And even on the court, I have, like, my approach sometimes is really close to the net, and she'll just look at me and I'll know. Like, it's just a little reminder, but since it's coming from her, it's just nice. So we have a little bit of seniority, but there's only one, so she's like the mom of all of us, so it's kind of nice.
Oh, that's interesting. So the year starts out. What were your goals from a team? Do you have certain win goals, certain metric goals that you wanted the team to reach?
Honestly, we didn't really talk about wins. We talked about playing good volleyball pretty much from day one, and we continue to talk about that. And if you play good volleyball, then the wins are going to take care of themselves. And that did happen, I think, at the beginning of the year. I think also at the beginning of the year, just the fresh approach that we were taking with some freshmen on the team, with a new coaching staff, somebody different running drills, different voices in the gym. When you have that fresh newness, there's always an excitement around that. And when there's an excitement around volleyball, there's good volleyball.
And it's a very exciting sport. I mean, it's a very high energy and emotional. I think it's an emotional game because I feel like almost every point ends with, both teams like on an emotional, high, whether one's positive or negative. And I can see why mindset could play such a big role in how a team, produces, especially if the teams are relatively equal, that a mindset could be a differentiating factor.
Oh, absolutely. Volleyball is like a roller coaster. I don't know how I've done this for so long mentally, but it's a roller coaster. And if you can manage to, one of the things we always say is if you lost the point, you got to fake it. You got to fake it until you make it. You have to feel good about what's going to happen on the next point. You have to work hard for the next point, and you have to have an emotional high in order to get to that mode of being in order to physically be able to do the next point. So mentality is 90% of the battle.
So when you're talking about that sort of mentality, do you feel like you want the players to be kind of on the optimistic side or more neutral in order to kind of stay out of the cul-de-sac and negativity that can happen if you lose 4 or 5 points in a row?
Yeah, that's the killer. You have to try to avoid those. Again, it's not an optimism or a pessimism per se. It's more of a focus on next point. The last point doesn't matter. We can't control that. The only thing we control is the next point. So again, focus on each step. How well did I move my feet to the ball? How well did I present my platform? Those kind of things. And that's what you focus on instead of necessarily positivity or negativity.
So kind of releasing the emotion out of it?
Yeah, if it's negative emotion, absolutely. If it's negative emotion, that's why we try to fake it.
Right.
But if it's positive emotion, yeah, use that energy and that adrenaline that you get from it in order to get to the next point. But either way, focus on your job.
Right. So you mentioned before the team has a bunch of big personalities, which can be a positive and a negative. So I'd love to explore both of those. So in what ways is it a positive and in what ways is it negative?
Well, I guess I start with the negatives. I feel like sometimes they'll clash. Like at one time we'll want calmness, but someone will be trying to rev it up or try to be really explosive. And right now we need calm. We need something like that. Or we need to be serious in a moment and someone maybe not be serious. But I feel like it doesn't really come out that much, the negatives at all. Everyone knows what their job is when it comes in and when it doesn't. So the positives are obviously when we're all in one accord, everyone's doing their job at the appropriate moment. And that's just happening right now. That's probably why things are happening, winning and stuff. So it's just nice. It's cool.
When you have outgoing personalities like that, does it help for on-court communication? Is there a correlation between those two?
That's a good question. I think, yes. I think even if you don't have an outgoing personality, though, there's a real role for that, that's certainly necessary. Again, when negativity starts to creep in, or you're on a little bit of a 3-4 point slide, you need to be able to look to somebody that just has a look on their face like, no biggie, we got this. So there's a role sort of for every personality.
Right. Then even within the points themselves, in terms of communicating, whether it's on offense or defense or in a transition moment.
Everybody's communicating all the time. Again, because of the speed of the game, there's constant communication. It's one thing that we stress all the time. I actually have a joke. I ask them to over communicate all the time. It's kind of an inside joke among all of us, but we almost have to over communicate. Say it again. Say it louder. Say it with more enthusiasm. Whatever it happens to be. So we like to say we want to over communicate.
Got it. All right. So season starts. You win 11 straight games to start the year, which provides you, obviously, which is a huge positive. But for both of you, it also provides a potential new situation where dealing with the success of the moment and trying to make sure you kind of keep the mindset in the preparation that you had kind of in the beginning, where it allows you to create that momentum. So I guess, Jenae, just first for you, how did you approach it once you reeled off several wins in a row and trying to maintain that equilibrium that allows you to kind of keep that going and not let that win streak kind of either go to your head or however you want to say it?
Well, it was helpful that when we came back from a winning weekend, the coach would look at us and say, "Oh, nice job, but it's over." So, and we're not I guess the main thing is our goal is we're not working for a winning, undefeated season. We're here to change the program. We're here to change our name and how we present ourselves, and how we want to just be a winning program, and the fact that we're doing well in the conference, we're doing well in everything that we do. Every game is a new game. So we always think of it as, yeah, we're doing well, but it's not what we want. It's like we're always hungry for something better than what we're doing. So as long as we're hungry for the next game, it's just we're winning, but that's not what we want. We want to be different in past years.
Right. And as a coach, I've heard the expression, if I've heard it once, I've heard it a dozen times, is that it's harder to critique or kind of teach after a win or after success, because after a loss, they can see, all right, these were the negatives that resulted from kind of X performance or Y technique. But if you're winning, it's hard to keep building and learning from that moment, because the success can kind of override that. So for you, how do you kind of deal with that?
Yeah, you're right. We always say you learn more from failure than you do from success, and we've had our share of failures, so certainly we're able to learn there. But when push comes to shove, we just get back to details. There are a lot of details that were not done right that could be done better, things that a layperson who doesn't know volleyball as well wouldn't see. Did we not transition fast enough? Did we not cover well for the block? Were we not angling our platform? Were our serves not to the exact spot we wanted them to be? So things that you might not see, that the details are really the reason why you win or lose a game, more so than the big slam swing. You don't get the big slam swing unless the person who passed the ball moved their feet in the correct way with the right drop step and not a shuffle and things like that, that you can always go back to and focus on the details.
And for you, in terms of focusing on those details, is it hard as the season progresses to keep that focus versus kind of either game planning for the next game, or, there's certain, obviously, areas of practice where, especially if you do a drill multiple times over, a 6 to 8 week span, it might be easy to kind of go on autopilot while you're either administering the drill, or for an athlete to kind of go through the drills. Is it hard to keep your focus on those specific things as the season progresses?
Not really, only because the next competition is always very different. So what we did last week and what we planned for last week, defensively, perhaps a certain kind of hitter, is not what we're planning for next week. So it changes. So just the success in one area, blocking, is great and all, but we were blocking a 5'10" outside. Do we know now we have a 6'4" middle coming at us that runs a certain slide approach, and then the next week it's the people we really got to look out for are is the middle who runs a quick one and never goes behind the setter. So it's easy to assume that we did that well, so we're good. But there's always something new and something different because the competition's changing, and each team truly does have very different strengths, especially within our conference alone. There are different sizes, different speeds, different offenses, different defenses. So we have to prepare every week for something new. So it doesn't really get too run of the mill.
Right. So September 15th, you guys head down to the West Point tournament, USMA Army tournament. So you head down there and you get your first loss of the year. For the team, how did your teammates and you react to that moment?
Obviously it was a shock, and I guess it just happened kind of thing. We all knew we weren't going to go undefeated, but we didn't know when it was going to happen. Unfortunately, it happened then, but we all looked at each other like, yeah, we knew this was going to happen. We should have won that game, I feel like, but it definitely made us humbled, if that makes sense. I was thankful for it because at least it wasn't against like someone in our conference that we could have beat, like you know what I mean. But It was just a loss, and that was it. You can't help that.
Right, but then obviously it was a tough weekend.
Yeah.
For the team, right? So you end up losing 4 games in a row.
Yeah.
Right. So what was it like internally in terms of the communication and just the presence of the individuals on the team? The difference between the first loss and the fourth loss, where you'd done so well, and all of a sudden now you're on a losing streak, and you have that situation where, hey, this might not have been a fluke. Can we pull ourselves out of that? What is the process like for you personally and as a team going through such kind of a different emotions to where you were just a week prior?
Well, I feel like it was just, as you said before, there's things we had to work on, and they were just exploited, and that was what happened. And it just provided us with new footage of what we had to do later on, and it just showed us that we aren't unbeatable. We can be beat by anybody, and as long as we work our hardest, we can probably win these games, and that just showed what needed to be done. And my dad always says, sometimes it's just not your weekend, and sometimes it's not your game, so that's what happened.
And Coach, you mentioned before that you don't focus on the wins and losses. It's more process to the point where like in-point processes of like handling each specific action in a vacuum and not letting it carry over to the next point or the next set or the next match. So for you, did you feel like the team, either were continuing to progress and just the win just didn't happen for you guys, or was there some backsliding?
Well, first of all, that tournament was probably our toughest tournament of the season as far as scheduling. We knew by design, we knew that was going to be the toughest tournament we had up until that point. And that's because we were trying to prepare our team the best we could going into our Big East season. So we knew that was going to be the toughest one. Did we feel that we would go 0-3 in the tournament? No. I truly feel that we had the talent to, on paper, probably 2-1 would have been what we were hoping for out of it. The bottom line is, much like Jenae said, did we play poorly? No. And in a couple games, we actually played pretty well. We took a game off West Virginia. They're a top 50 team right now. And, there were things that we learned about ourselves that we didn't learn in the past with the wins that were, we can play with teams that are the size that we're going to be playing in the Big East. And we didn't know that with any of our wins. But that weekend we realized, hey, we're right in this with everybody else. We're right in the mix. And I think we actually learned more positive things about ourselves than we did with the wins, because we saw much tougher competition and we saw that that's where we belong.
Right. And then September 22nd, you have the first conference game. So you're coming off a loss to Bryant. You're then playing home against Villanova. So for you, what's your mindset like heading into Big East play? Is there a shift at all?
Well, a lot was going on, so our mind, it was just, at that point, it was just play volleyball, because I feel like before we were so focused on, we got to do this, we have to be at this position, we were just trying to fix so many things at once because because we were losing, it's just because we had to do so much more. But unfortunately, one of our middles went down, and after that, we just looked at each other like, we just got to play volleyball, and I think that's all we did. We just looked at each other. We knew everybody was going to do their job, and we knew everybody was going to try their hardest, and as long as that happened, we couldn't lose. And after that, we all just kind of leaned on each other, and we listened to the game plan that the coaches gave us. We trusted in it, and we just rode with each other wherever we were supposed to go.
And does it feel different, Big East games versus non-conference games?
I like the preparation before because we do have more time to prepare for like video and watching people and everything, but it's not any different than the rest. I feel like it's just another game. It's still volleyball, so just have to play it.
Yeah, I think one of the things that's special about this team that Jenae touched on is we've been snake bitten a little bit with injuries from day 2 of preseason, to be honest. And this team has pretty just easily rallied around each other and been like, oh, no problem. I'll try that position and see if I can succeed there. And luckily, actually, Jenae is the one who's been able to do that, probably because of her athleticism. She's been able to play various positions when different teammates in different positions go down. So we're lucky to have somebody like that. But everybody actually stepped up in their own way with that sort of, what's my talent and where can I do it best. But I think one of the things that makes this team special is they don't focus on necessarily what we're missing right now. We're missing this position. We're missing this hitter. It's more, what do we have? What's good? And that's more of what they focus on. And I think that moving into the Big East season is something that I think they realized about themselves early on. And when the Big East season came and another person went down, we were able to say, hey, we've done this before. We're there. And now it's Big East. And luckily for us, they were home matches and we had a great crowd. And I think people were really starting to appreciate the things that we've been doing, probably because of the wins early on. And the crowd really pushed us into making those things happen. And I think now we look back and we're like, okay, yep, we belong.
And it's a sport where there's a ton of pounding, right? Especially for a hitter like yourself. In terms of you're jumping so many times in the game, so obviously you're putting a lot of stress on your legs, both just taking off and landing. So as a coach, how do you weigh trying to be at peak performance every game, but also balancing that with, hey, this is a long season. We need to be at our best, not only for the beginning of conference play, but even more so at the end, and then trying to do well in the postseason and all of those things.
Yeah, I think my assistant coach Keith does a really good job when we're working on practice plans to, think they need a little bit of break with their legs today. They had lifting this morning. They need let's work more on the mental part of the game. Let's work more on, looking at video and those kinds of things. So I think we do a good job balancing their physical with their mental. And when we know they're physically, driven into the ground and can't take much more pounding, we shift to the mental side. And then, when it's time, day before the game, we can get back to some scrimmaging and that kind of thing in practice.
Right. And talking about balancing the physical and the mental, Jenae, you're a sports media major here at PC, which is a kind of a new endeavor here at the college. Why did you decide to pursue that?
Well, first on the physical thing, shout out to Kayla, the trainer, because she's literally always there when we need cold tub baths and stuff. But also sports media. I kind of just got into that because I personally want to aspire to be a broadcaster, hopefully, particularly in the ESPN fields. And I just first of all, I wanted to go here for volleyball and just like the campus. I just loved it. My dad said, you're going to love wherever you go. When you go there, you're just going to know. And I knew it, but I really didn't look at the majors. And it was really nothing I wanted to do. So I was like, well, I'll just make one. And that was kind of just that. Also, I feel like a lot of people around me, my friends, not just athletes, but I'm friends with people like Dan Chamberlain, who's always in the gym, but he's not on a sports team, but he wants to be a sports major. And a lot of people are just like, oh, I really want to do this, but there's nothing there. So I was like, well, I'll do it. I'll pave the way. And so is my roommate. And now it's just getting a lot of publicity. So might as well just do it,
So for you, what is that? How do you work to get to that level in terms of you want to be a broadcaster? We talk about volleyball. How do you get to be a winning program and the detail-oriented approach, so on and so forth? How do you take that same mindset towards your academics and certain professional goals that you may have?
Well, I'm very competitive in anything I do, and I really don't like to lose in tests at all. I like to beat anything I want at any moment, and that's just a lot of studying. That's a lot of just mental preparation. Also, just taking notes in class, especially. So, and then to do the sports media, it's a long process of figuring out which teachers you need, which classes you have to take, and you have to write a bunch of stuff about it. So I just know if I do this, it's going to be what I want, and it's what I feel that I want. It's going to take me where I need to be. So that was just the driving force of that, and just connections, especially always being with the journalist, or like when my coach actually suggested I go to a dinner with a bunch of people and alumni. It just so happened I sat at a table, accidental table. She wasn't supposed to be there, which is a journalist at PC. So it's just kind of a little bit of blessing, a little bit of me.
So what's the best part of the major?
Just picking what I get to do. Like right now I'm in sports lit class and all I do is read books about sports. So, and different sports, long distance running, which is not my favorite, but it's a good book.
Pretty much the exact opposite from an athletic point of view of what you're currently doing.
Yes, I definitely pick volleyball for the least amount of running that has to do with it.
And for you, how do you feel when you see someone really kind of embracing the academic side of their time here at PC? Because obviously, you want people to be very engaged with their academics, but to see someone really kind of embracing it at that level, does it have like a personal feeling for you?
Absolutely. The best part of it, best part of my job is to see student athletes come in here at a an age where they aren't real sure what they want to do, and they the best thing is after 4 years the personality change that they have is this confidence in who I am and what I want to do and how I get there, and there's just it's the most rewarding part, to see that transformation in personality, and that goes, certainly in volleyball, but more so in their academic fields. And 5, 6, 7 years later, you sit and talk with those people, and you remember when you didn't even and you didn't even know where that building was, and now look where you are now. The fulfillment in that is the best thing there is.
That's wonderful. Well, thank you so much for joining me today. This has been great. Obviously, there's plenty of season still to go. So best of luck with everything. And do you have anything to say before we get going?
No, thank you. We really appreciate this. We really appreciate those of you that are listening. Come out to our matches. I think you'll be surprised. The speed of the game is really fun to watch. And in particular, this young woman sitting next to me is a treasure of a person and of an athlete. So come check her out.
There you go. And Jenae, you got the shirt to prove it. You got the superhero shirt. Anything you want to say before we get going?
No, just go Friars, and volleyball is on the come up.
There you go. All right, go Friars.